Good morning,
Good afternoon.
good night, and welcome to Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef,
And I'm Gigi.
and we're excited to be here.
Listen, thanks for checking in.
Welcome to Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef,
I'm Gigi.
and we're back.
Yes, we are. Here we go. Another show,
Oh
Teef.
my, you're gonna love this one today.
Yes, you
oh,
know I am.
You're
I've
gonna
been waiting.
love this
I've been
one.
waiting
and
for
you
this
know what?
one.
It's certain guests
Yeah.
that I bring on that I'm like, listen, Gigi is gonna. Oh my goodness, she's gonna lose her mind with this one. And this is one of those guests that I know you're gonna go all in. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
sit back and I'm gonna let you do your thing.
Yeah. I'm
Sounds
so
good?
excited. Sounds good,
All
Teef.
right,
Let's
so
go.
I'm just gonna sit over here and say, Gigi, do your thing. But before we do that,
Hit me with it.
I got some
Ready.
questions for you.
What you
all
got? What you
All
got?
right,
What
here
you
we
got
go.
today?
Now, Gigi,
Yes. Yes, Teef.
I want you to name your very favorite. Think about this for a second. Your favorite cell phone that you've ever had. I want you to name your favorite amusement park.
Okay.
And I want you to give the world, a TV show that you absolutely loved when you were a kid that no one would think that you watched.
Oh.
Huh?
So the last one is really easy. I'm gonna blow your mind with it,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll start with question number one.
Give me the
So
first
you
one.
said it
Your
was
favorite cell phone.
my favorite cell phone. My favorite cell phone was my first cell phone, and it was a flip phone
Flip
because
phone.
that's what we were doing. I think it was a Nokia or something like
Nokia,
that.
yeah,
But I was so
yeah.
I was so impressed with the technology because we didn't grow up with cell phones. I mean, we know how young we look, but
There you
we
go,
came
G.
from a time with the phone stretched, from the kitchen or down the hall with that cord. So my first cell phone is my favorite, just
Okay.
because it was like having a cell phone in my pocket and having that technology. So that's number one.
Okay.
Teef, the second question, my favorite amusement
Yeah,
park.
favorite amusement park.
I'm gonna have to go with Disney World.
Ooh.
And I go with that because as a child I went and it was amazing to go, and it is magical. As an adult, I'm not crazy about Disney
How many
World
times you been
as
to
an
Disney?
adult. I've been to Disney, I think 4 times. Yeah,
Wow.
like but in my entire life.
Four times?
Yeah, wow, he's making it sound
Excuse
like I'm
me?
a
God dang.
Rockefeller.
Yeah, she
But yeah,
is.
probably in my life. But mind you, I have daughters that are very different in age.
Okay.
So I brought my oldest daughter, when she was really young, and that was magical. Her and my nephew and my sister, we all went. And so just seeing the kids lose their mind. And then I went again when my youngest daughter was little. And so for me as an adult, seeing how the kids lose their mind and like get enraptured in the magic of Disney World.
Hold that though.
Mm.
I'm laughing because my kids are probably watching this saying, Daddy, only been one time. So you're making
Listen,
me look bad.
no. Each of my kids only went once.
Oh, okay.
Each of
Okay.
my
Okay.
kids only went once, but there's 13 years between them.
Gotcha.
So don't
Gotcha.
beat your daddy up.
Thank you,
This
G.
I had to
Thank
do
you.
this.
Thank
I had
you.
to do
Thank
it
you.
like
That's
that.
my girl.
Now one of my favorite TV shows from when I was a child that you wouldn't think I liked.
Right.
I couldn't get enough of Little House on the Prairie. I
Oh
love
my
Little House on the
goodness.
Prairie. Those of you, I
Wow.
know that I got people out there that loved it with me. There was Nellie Olson, who was the bully, and Laura Ingalls, who was like the rough, tough girl. I loved Little House on the Prairie.
Absolutely.
I come
Absolutely.
home, have a snack, fall asleep in the middle of it, but that was my joint. I liked Little House on the Prairie.
And
Don't tell everybody.
I don't think I ever sat down and watched. I know. I mean, of course, I know what it
Yeah.
is. I don't think I ever watched one entire episode.
I loved Little House on the Prairie.
I love it, G.
I'm
I
a
love
sucker for it.
Give
I
me
don't
some. Give me
know.
some. Give me some. All right.
Now, your turn. Favorite cell phone, Teef?
My favorite cell phone. I had a BlackBerry. Remember when
I
they
do
first
remember the
came out?
Blackberries.
It was
Yeah,
like having a computer
it was.
with the
You
ball.
had the
that
whole
you
had the whole
yes,
keyboard.
yes.
Yeah.
Not the one with the phone, but the one with
Yeah.
the whole keyboard.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. My favorite amusement park ever.
Yeah.
Listen to the words. It was called
Riverside.
You
I know
advanced,
about Riverside. The river.
Way
Listen,
more.
for those of you who don't know, I gotta
There you go.
interrupt.
Do your thing, G.
Riverside
Do
is
your
when you
thing.
go as a couple and you get matching sweatshirts. Right, everybody, you got matching sweatshirts and like you get it made. Like I'm with you. This my
After our senior prom.
Yeah.
Remember the whole class went to
yes,
Riverside. Remember?
yes.
So
Riverside.
Riverside was my favorite amusement park before it
Yes.
became Six Flags. Before it was
Yes.
Six Flags.
Riverside.
And
Memories.
my favorite, still, I still go on antenna TV and watch this. Matlock.
Oh, as a kid,
Oh,
Teeth?
as a kid,
Oh
my
my
brother and
goodness.
sister are watching me saying, "Yeah, he used to love that show."
Wow.
And Matlock was my favorite, and he always loved hot dogs. And guess what?
You
I
love
love a
hot
good hot
dogs.
dogs in the summer on the
See.
cookout. Boom, boom,
Oh
boom.
my
So,
goodness.
and
Matlock.
and
We
he's
were
a,
two old people as kids then. You
hey,
watching Matlock, me watching Little House on the Prairie.
and it's perfect because it
Yeah.
goes into who's going to be on the scene next. An attorney.
That's right.
Attorney James Sasso is
Look at
next,
that.
guys. Listen, we got a really good show for you guys. I hope you're ready. You ready? Here we go. Welcome to Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef.
And I'm Gigi.
And today, oh my goodness,
Come
GJ,
on.
this is the one you've been waiting
You
for.
know I've been waiting for this one. This is a good one.
This is the one Gigi has been waiting for to speak to you for some time. Lead investigation for the January 6th riot on the Capitol. Ladies and gentlemen, Attorney James Sasso, welcome to the
Yes.
show.
Welcome.
Thank you. Definitely not lead, but one of the investigative counsel on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So,
well, we'll take that. We'll take that too.
yeah.
Gigi's very excited.
Yes,
I mean, about
absolutely.
this one. So she has a lot of questions for you as well as I. But before we dive right into that, because we want to get into that, we're gonna go through the process like we do every interview, and we're gonna get a little background, and then at that point, I'm gonna tell Gigi, go get him.
There we go.
Fear
Gigi,
not.
you can only
Fear
ask
not.
about January 6th. Nothing else. Not allowed.
Yeah, no, fear not. I'm really more than anything, just really excited to hear your perspective. And so any questions I have is really just wanting to hear more and more the layers of what your experience was. But he's right. I've been very excited
She's
to
been
meet
very
you.
excited. And you had a question off camera about the schools you guys attended and background and stuff like that. So we can start there.
All right. So I grew up in Hamden, not New Haven, but close enough. And my mom's been a teacher at Wilbur Cross, Miss Sasso. She's been there since, I don't know, 96 or 97 or something when I was young. And she's going to retire at the end of this year.
Oh, wow.
But I've always had a special place in my heart for Wilbur Cross, even though you guys were not as good at basketball as we were.
Oh,
come on.
Well, the Dragons had it going on. They definitely did.
It was all right. It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm messing with Sasso because our background, how we met.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell the story how we met.
Yeah.
Sasso was an amazing ball player. He used to go with his father Andy.
Okay. Yes,
who's
who I know.
our attorney.
Yes.
For the show. That's Andy Cohen.
Great guy.
Yes, he is.
Used to send Sasso to Quinnipiac in Connecticut, Quinnipiac in Hampton, Connecticut, basketball camp every year.
Okay.
So I was one of the coaches. And this guy right here was a standout player, and he knows it. And so I used to pick him up on my team. Now, this is crazy because Gigi's been in education for a long time. She's worked in the school system for a long time. And so I used to pick him up on my team, and he would help me win championships there.
Little pudgy white kid.
Huh?
I was a little pudgy white kid, too, at the time.
You was amazing. You was amazing. But my point of the story is he went to Hamden High School. He played AAU basketball for me. He was amazing.
Yeah.
And we lost contact.
Well, that happens.
And guess what?
Yeah.
I run into Andy,
Yeah.
his father, Andy Cohen, and he says, Teef, you're going to be so proud of Sass. I said, what's going on? He went to Harvard Law and graduated.
Oh.
And so, look.
So there's a piece of the story, right? You're a kid in Hamden running around shooting hoops, and you ended up at Harvard Law, right? And there's some pieces in between there I know you're going to fill in.
Absolutely.
Nothing in between.
Go ahead.
No, just that's it. I was a kid, and then I went to law school.
No, so the point of the story that Gigi will really appreciate is, as a teacher, dealing with students, you never know who you're dealing with.
You don't.
You know?
You don't.
So the way you treat people, you got to be careful because, hey, look how things happen.
That's right. That's right. Also, there's amazing potential, right? I'm sure that you exhibited lots of potential, but as an educator, you have no idea what somebody's going to birth, what's going to come out of them.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure your teachers back in Hamden are very proud of you.
I don't know if they even know. They must have said. We'll see. I mean, Teef was such a great coach, so I had a lot of great mentorship growing up, and it's probably my fault we lost contact.
No.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a very weird path to law school.
Mhm.
I wanted to be a chef. So I kind of like, I was still playing basketball throughout high school, loved basketball. Will call myself a very good pickup player, not amazing, just whatever. When that dream faded, I thought I'd become a chef. I got into the Culinary Institute of America after high school.
CIA.
I had a scholarship there, was ready to go. But here's one of those things in life that you just can't
Get
you
a
can't
lick.
predict and you can't figure out how or why it happens. But they had a start date in December of 2007, which is the year I graduated, instead of the normal September like other colleges.
Mhm.
So I had like 4 months to go visit friends, to think about it, and it suddenly hit me that I wanted to go to school and to learn, and I cared about history and I cared about politics and all these things. For 4 years in high school, I was too cool to think about, was just caring about basketball and cooking, and thought I'd be like the next Anthony Bourdain or something like that. And I ended up taking a year off and reapplied to colleges, took it a little more seriously,
Mhm.
went to Boston College, which I think
You went to BC for undergrad?
went to BC for undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so at
Never
this
thought of
point,
myself.
Mike, you had foregone CIA. You had been admitted but did not go. I see.
Yeah, I turned it down. So it was like, I don't know, probably October, November.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually going to go with my best friend in high school at the time, but he backed out for personal reasons. And then I just called him up and said, sorry, I can always go back to cooking. I can't always go back to learning in the same. It's not as easy. You
Mm-hmm.
can't
Mm-hmm.
be an undergrad when you're 25. You
Mm-hmm.
could go back and learn how to cook, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same as being a freshman in college.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Okay, so you go to BC.
yeah,
You major in what at BC?
I was a history poli sci double major.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where like I finally let myself care about school. I'd never never studied for a test in my life, and then just decided to put myself like to the grindstone. I had a lot of really smart people around me, were really challenging me, professors who were great. Uh, I did better than I ever expected I could
Mm-hmm.
do there, and I loved the relationships I made with professors and thought, wow, that's like a really cool job. You get to write, you get to read, you get to teach. You guys are both education people. You understand. My mom's a
Mm-hmm.
teacher. My dad thought about being a teacher for a little while. It's just a great thing to do. It's a great job. It's underappreciated. And my original plan after undergrad was to work for a couple years and then go find my way to becoming a professor.
Okay.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So when
that
you
didn't happen either.
when you when you picked you said poli sci and history, did
Yeah,
you have a plan in mind, or were these just subjects of interest? It's interesting. This was as a freshman or a sophomore, I imagine, at that point.
yeah. Freshman, I picked history just because I was interested in history.
Yeah.
Uh, Another one of my best friends from childhood, he actually my neighbor, he was a senior at BC at the time, and he was a poli sci major. So like hanging out with him freshman year, and after now looking back on it, it's kind of obvious. My parents are very into politics. All we did at dinner table, they're divorced, so, but even both houses, all we would do is talk about politics. My neighbor's into politics, so he and I would talk about politics all the time.
Yeah.
I can look back now and say that was obvious, but it
Yeah.
wasn't until the end of freshman year that I picked that major up too. And I had, even then, I had no worldly clue what I was going to do.
Well, at that point, we were 17, 16, 17, 18 years old. We don't
20,
know what
20,
we're doing, right?
20.
Some things made sense. They fell into place, thank goodness, but it's hard to know at that
Yeah,
age, right?
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Great.
impossible. I think like I mean, I just haven't known much about my path except what I'm doing in front of me and what I can keep doing to be successful at that time.
Right.
And that's something that I think a lot of people forget. And I've heard this advice, do the job you are doing right now well and stop worrying about the future job that you might have,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't do what you're doing well, you're not going to get there.
Right.
So I tried as hard as I could not to think too hard about where my life would go.
Right.
Okay.
To my benefit and to my probably a little bit of detriment, there are many more people who are much more single-minded, single-planned, and they will get whatever goal they want. And I'm sort of scattershot. I'm like, oh, that all of that sounds really cool. And that's what I was as an undergrad.
So,
Wow.
Sass, once you graduate, what's the next step? You graduate from BC.
Yeah, I worked at a law firm in Boston for 2 years,
Okay.
and that's another accident of my life that worked out well for me. This is a law firm that had offices in Boston, New York, and DC, and they took undergrads to who were thinking about law school.
Mm-hmm.
And just at that time, I was thinking about grad school. I didn't know PhD. I didn't know law school. I didn't know what I knew. I wanted to be a professor. I didn't know which one of those two I would go. Uh, and I wanted to be in the DC office because I like politics, or the New York office because my parents are New Yorkers and I'm a giant New York Knicks fan, Giants fan. I love the city. I spent my childhood going to New York, not Boston. So I was like, get me out of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Their home office is Boston. They wanted me there. So that's where I was. Ended up meeting my wife, Caitlin, a year into it because she worked with my
Hey,
roommate.
Caitlin, how you doing, Caitlin?
I don't know if she can hear. She's working out. So that, I mean, like another thing that outside of my control, but it was great. And from there, ended up applying to grad school. So I had a close professor at BC, Ken Kirsch. He ends up listening. Great guy. Came to our wedding. Love him as a friend. He is a JD, a lawyer and a PhD. And he did law school first, was a lawyer for a bit, then got his PhD because he hated corporate law and wanted to teach. And he's a great teacher. So we're all thankful for that. And he said, why don't you do both? Why don't you do a JD and a PhD? It's a really good way to become a law professor if you have both degrees. It's just, you can think about doing both and no need to pick. I thought he meant do both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up being my dissertation. So I ended up applying to PhD programs in law school at the same time.
Wow.
And got into, didn't really get into programs at the same school, but got into Princeton's political science PhD program. They call it politics. And I got into Harvard Law School and they let me design a joint program where I could start at Princeton, figure out what I want to write for my dissertation, head off to law school, keep writing the dissertation and go from there.
Love
So,
it. Love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
you had
Wow.
lots of serendipity and paths opening for you. It sounds amazing.
yeah, and a lot of crazy hours put in during grad school for all of this, but turned out to be worth it. I questioned that for a while because I stopped wanting to be a professor right after probably my second year into this wild, crazy thing that I did. Maybe later down the road, I would love to do it. I'm going to be an adjunct professor at Georgetown Law in about a year, but I didn't want to jump right into academia. I ended up interning for Senator Blumenthal, our great United States senator, and got that public service itch. I've always thought like why, and it sort of hit me like why do all this education? Why go through all of this if I'm not going to do something that I can give back directly? And you can give back being a professor, but I wanted to give back on a more community, a larger community.
Wow.
So that's when I tried to get into public service.
Okay, so you graduate from Harvard. First job after Harvard. What's your first job?
Yeah, I graduated in 2019, and then there's things called clerkships. So a lot of young lawyers will go apply to work for judges.
Okay.
To be, it's not like an assistant, but it kind of is. You help them prepare for oral argument. You prepare for cases. Help them write their opinions if they're writing opinions. Help them make decisions. Help them go through all the evidence. Talk about the law with them. It's a really intimate year experience. It can be 2 years for some judges. They also have career people who do this for a career, which is a great career. So I worked for justice of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court as my first job in starting end of 2019.
Okay.
For Justice David Lowy, great guy, absolutely loved it. I would basically just be reading and writing all day. And talking to him and talking to my co-clerks. And the problem was the pandemic hit. March of 2020. So this job is supposed to be something where you're in close contact,
intimate, right? Really getting that wisdom, all those pearls, right?
Right. So we all got shut down remote, and state courts didn't exactly have technology set up to be remote. So it was a little Interesting for the last 6 months. I still made great relationships. We were taking basically people who were in jail or people who had been arrested and were being held in jail before their trial because a court found them to be dangerous or something.
Mm-hmm.
These people were petitioning us and saying we weren't sentenced to death. COVID is rampaging in here, and that's
Yeah.
a very fair argument, right? Like you're not, and the prison system was not taking enough care of people. It's hard in an institution where people are sharing bunks and whatever. And we'd have to leaf through those cases and figure out who either had like the right arguments or the right support system or was trustworthy enough to be released until their trial, or who had been in jail long enough and we're like, okay, like you're old, you're sick, you need to go home for a while until this is done.
Wow.
And Mike, this
That
was
was
all related. These were all responses to the pandemic, this
yeah.
specific time period you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There was no system set in place, and our court just had to create it
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
people we can't just let people die,
Right.
even if they've committed crimes. People don't deserve to die
Right. Right.
unnecessarily.
So the phone call comes
Yeah,
January 6th.
yeah.
Investigator for January 6th, the siege on the Capitol. How does that happen?
A classic DC story.
Okay.
Ah.
So
I'm strapping in.
the
Let's hear it.
yeah. The year after the clerkship I just talked about, I had another one with a federal circuit judge, Judge Thompson in Rhode Island. She's fantastic. Could talk about her forever at another time. But during that year, like Kate and I were planning our wedding, we're planning to move to DC, and I took a job for when it was done at a law firm called Oric. It's a big international law firm. It has an office in DC. I'd worked for them in the summer during law school. So we, ready to move to DC. Get to DC, start working October.
Mm-hmm.
3 months later, I'm trying to connect with my old friends slash bosses who were at Senator Blumenthal's office. So, get together, hang out.
Yeah.
And my friend Sandeep Prasanna, who was my boss in Senator Blumenthal's office, one of my bosses, invites me to his holiday party. He's just like, hey, sorry we haven't been able to get together. I've been super busy. Come on, why don't you come to this party? So Kayla and I go, we know nobody. We're hanging out, talking to him. And I thought he was working at the Department of Justice, which is like the job he had before he joined the January 6th committee.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, I'm on the January 6th committee. And I'm like, wow. So we talk about that, meet some other people, have a great night. And on the way out, he says, hey, we're going to be hiring. We need people. Like, give me your resume.
Wow.
So gave him a resume, had 3 back-to-back interviews the 3 days before Christmas, and got the call like January 3rd or January 4th.
Wow.
I mean, like, mind blown because
Absolutely.
yeah, most of the people they hired had many years of being prosecutors or investigators
Right.
at big law firms. And here I am, like 2.5 years, not even out of law school.
What do you
Like,
credit that to? Why do you think you were selected to do this important work?
definitely partially because Sandeep vouched for me. So this is another one of those instances. If you do a job well at the
That's
time,
right.
you never know what's going to lead to later.
Well, he vouched for you because you did good work.
Absolutely.
Right. So
When
yes.
I was an intern, I did good work. We stayed in touch. That's always another thing young people should do: stay in touch with your mentors. Sorry, Chief. Yeah, and I think partially it's the political science background I have. So I studied polarization as part of my dissertation. It was a big theme.
Mm-hmm.
Basically ended my dissertation talking about the riot and talking about the threats that this poses, how bad it is that we've come to a place where people distrust each other and distrust their government so much that they're willing to storm the Capitol because a guy tells them a bunch of lies. So that story that I was getting to tell during the interview, I think, plus I'm an obviously eager person. I wanted this job. Like, of all the ways I thought I could help impact the country, this was one of the biggest ones. So I think my eventual bosses saw that in the interviews that I had.
Did I hear you correctly that you studied in undergrad polarization when you were studying political science?
Undergrad and at my PhD program.
Wow. Oh, that's what you did your doctoral work in. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
basically.
this was ripe ground for that, for polarization. You tons
Yeah,
of research and material to get that going. That's
yeah,
amazing.
50 years of what political scientists call constitutional rot and democratic weakening, basically,
Yeah.
where just for a large variety of reasons that would, from money in politics to our politicians being cynical to the way we elect people,
Mm-hmm.
Watergate, Vietnam, you
Mm-hmm.
name it. There's just been 50 years of stuff that has led people to, including economic forces and technology that have led people to not feel as if the government is working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot big racial component to it too, and it is not a
Enormous.
good mix.
Mm-hmm.
Enormous, and
Mm-hmm.
it is a very bad mix right now.
Right. Can I ask
Yeah.
you one other question? I know you,
No, 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 no.
right?
Do your thing.
So when you think about the previous 50 years and how there was all this polarization, would you, from your perspective, having done the research, does it seem like the past 10 years we sort of went in a microwave and really fast forwarded this polarization? Because it does seem that way. There's always been polarization in our country, but it seemed to me, just in layman, just sitting in my living room watching the news, that we put fast forward on this thing. What would you say?
I'd say that's right.
Yeah.
So there were people 10 years ago who were trying to argue that it's not different this time, that it's the
Mhm.
same.
Yeah.
Because as you point out, like, I mean, looking back at the founding period, you had Jefferson and Hamilton hating each other,
Right.
calling each other all sorts of names. The polarization then was crazy. And it was crazy during the Civil War, obviously,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
other points. But I think what's different today is technology.
Mm-hmm.
So we have
Uh-oh.
uh, and I
Lost.
don't think it's necessarily just the existence of technology. Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
it's
like we're,
freezing.
let's see, we got to I want all of that. I don't want to miss a thing.
Where did I freeze?
It's it.
you're you're good now. You're
Yeah.
good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so I don't think it's just technology
Yeah.
existing. I think there's a problem with what I just call the algorithm. The January 6th committee, we looked a lot, or there's a team called the Purple Team. They were looking at social media companies and how they monitored violence
Mm-hmm.
in the days leading up to January 6th. And part of what drives stuff on social media is their algorithms that
Mm.
basically pick up really fine preferences. So, there is no human being who's a perfect middle if you think about liberal and conservative
Mm-hmm.
politics,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of us kind of wobble at least one way or the other.
Right.
And algorithms can pick up on that.
Right.
So they will, like YouTube or whatever. Let's say you watch an episode of a
Jazzy
Wall Street
conversations with
Journal.
Teeth and Gigi.
Yeah, exactly.
this
Jazzy conversation
this
with
one
each
this one is middle of the road. So yeah.
right. This one's middle of the road. This one's gonna be hard to pick up. But if you watch like a Wall Street Journal video op-ed or something, the algorithm would pick up that you might be a little more conservative than average, and
Mm-hmm.
then it would start feeding you ever slightly more conservative things
Yeah.
because it's trained to do a dopamine hit, and
Mm-hmm.
we all get dopamine from things we agree with or
Yep.
things that make us angry. So it's like pleasure, anger, and anger is actually a stronger one.
Yeah.
So the algorithm pushes you out and out and out. And my team on the January 6th committee, we're the red team. We interviewed the people who stormed the Capitol.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
interviewed the domestic violence extremists along with the purple team who planned to storm the Capitol. We and a lot of the people we interviewed, people who have been charged by the Department of Justice, people who have pled guilty, people who have been sentenced. A lot of them talked about how in the pandemic they lost their jobs and they went on YouTube or Google or whatever, and 10 hours later they believe in QAnon conspiracy theories because that's what they're watching.
Right.
And Facebook reinforces it. That's what they see being posted.
Mm-hmm.
If you had even a slight inclination against vaccines, you might start getting posts about fake elections because it's the same dopamine hit according
Right.
to the algorithm, and then suddenly you're down that track too.
Right.
Wow.
And then we're extremely polarized. You don't even hear points of view that are different from your own, right? And when you went through this
Yeah,
algorithm, I have a brother that we like to call a conspiracy theorist, but he's not. I mean, he's been talking about this sort of thing. That's what we talk about at Thanksgiving, Mike.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you can't
Oh,
get
that's
a
good.
differing opinion because you watch one channel for the news, you do a certain kind of search, and you just keep getting reinforced with the same train of thought. So I think you're
Exactly.
absolutely right. It's just so much polarization. This was inevitable
I love it,
Right.
man.
in some form or fashion. Maybe not the way it did, but this was
Yeah.
inevitable.
I
And it's
love it.
harder with technology for people to tell fact from fiction. And I'm
Hmm.
not exactly sure why that is, but it is.
Yeah.
And the bubbles, everyone's always had a bubble. We've always had bubbles, like totally natural to have bubbles. But if you live your world in this a bubble defined by a computer versus a bubble defined by what's available to your community and what you can go out
Hmm.
and get and what you can go out and read and what you can yourself choose, uh, it's a lot more dangerous. And I
Yeah.
So,
think that
Sass, tell me, tell me a success story by you working on January 6th, something positive that came out of it for you.
for
Um,
me, well, personally, it was learning that I could lead a big team on a huge project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started in January. We finished, we had our hearings over the summer, which were wild, crazy time. By the fall, we were wrapping up our investigation. We were writing the report, and writing the report ends up being like 800 and something pages with 4,000 footnotes.
okay.
To
Hmm.
do that, you need to also fact check everything we put in the report.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that the writing is tight. You need to make sure we're not overstating our case, especially because this is going to be so scrutinized. We don't want to be out there saying things that we didn't learn from our investigation or
Hmm.
that are not backed up by facts, like
Hmm.
especially given how sensitive this was. And I ended up being one of like the lead person who figured out how to fact check the report and all 4,000 footnotes. I had a team of other staff members who helped out, and they were fantastic. Mostly, a couple lawyers would help out from here and there, but it was mostly right out of college or shortly out of college. I call them kids, which is unfair, but since I'm almost 34, to me, they were, they're great, but they had never done anything like this before.
Hmm.
Okay.
And there was no process in place. It was just, hey, James, go figure this out.
Right.
Like, obviously, we need to do this, go figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So I set up a whole process with quality checks, a whole way to track what we were doing for each chapter, a way to figure out how to merge new versions of chapters with old versions of chapters. And, it was very time crunched. I'm not going to say it was perfect because it's definitely not perfect.
Hmm.
We did, but we know that what we wrote is backed up by facts at the
Right.
very least. The footnote formatting, definitely not perfect. I saw a bunch of errors when I was looking back at it. And what made me proudest about it is one of my team members who he really helped me out, probably my right hand man on this project. At one point, we were kind of complaining about some of the chaos that can come with Congress. It's just natural. So, it was a really big compliment to hear that someone I was like leading thought that I would do a great job if I was put in control of other parts of the project. I think like our managers did a wonderful job. The committee members were fantastic. They
Hmm.
worked, if, without profanity, they worked their tails off on
Hmm.
this. I mean, top to bottom. It's just naturally when we were trying to do this massive project in such short period of time that
Hmm.
things could be a little chaotic. So,
Right.
but it was nice to hear that from a teammate. And everyone I've managed has been way too kind in what they've said about me. That's the proudest I think I felt
Yeah.
outside of the obvious public implications of what we did.
Well, that
Sat,
is tremendous. You should be proud. That is
this has been an
amazing.
amazing interview. I know Gigi's been waiting for this interview for some time. We're going to bring it to a close.
Yes, I do want to say this because you've got a father, right?
Yeah,
That we both have the
Absolutely.
pleasure of knowing. So I want to
Absolutely.
make sure that I don't forget to mention Andrew Cohen Esquire. He's here in New Haven. He has a boutique and highly selective law practice for employment law. And so he can be reached at andrewacohenlaw.com. Don't forget the middle initial,
Not.
andrewacohenlaw.com. An amazing attorney here in New Haven.
And Gigi left
Yes.
out the most important part. He just happened to be our attorney for the show.
Yes, he is. Great
So we
guy.
appreciate that,
And the
Andy.
apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What a pleasure. I want more time. I'm gonna pick it for more time. So many things I want to
I'm
talk
here.
about.
I'm fun employed right now until next month, so I'm taking a little break. You could have all the time
Oh,
you
I
want.
love that.
Sass, we got a very important question to ask you, though. All right.
Yes,
You listen to a lot of podcasts, right?
I do.
All right. So here's the question.
And you better get it right.
There you
You've
go.
studied, you know how to answer questions correctly. Okay, here we go.
I'm getting kind of sweaty in here. I
There,
don't
Here we
know.
go.
yeah.
Here we
This is
go.
a test.
Top 3 podcasts.
Well, number one,
There you
Jazzy Conversations with
Ah.
Teeth.
There it is. Come on, give it to me. Ah, there it is.
We love it. We love it. You get 2
Yeah.
more now. Okay.
Yes.
Give me
Now
the
we'll
other
hear
2.
about the others.
Yes.
2 more. I'm going to put aside NPR podcasts because I consider them still radio shows because I'm old enough to remember just listening to them on the
Just
radio.
NPR radio, right?
Yeah. There's a very funny Barstool sports podcast called Pardon My Take. It's these guys are just like completely ironic the whole time about how little they know about sports and how ridiculous it is that they're the number one sports podcast. It's very funny. And then another one that I listen to all the time, see if it's basketball.
There you go.
There
you go.
Back to his roots.
There you go.
I love it. I can't get enough of it. There's a ton of other ones. I've been listening to Ultra by what's her name? Rachel Maddow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's sharp.
Yeah.
If you're interested in January 6th, you should listen to it. It's
Yeah.
about Nazi collaborators in the U.S. government in the 1930s and 40s
wow.
who were trying to establish a Nazi regime here.
Mhm.
And you listen to it, you're like, wait a second, is Rachel Maddow talking about January 6th or is she talking about 1940?
Right. Wow.
So that's good. And I'll give you a million podcasts. Another funny one's called Bananas. My wife Caitlin put me onto it. It's these 2 friends who are a writer and an actor, comedian, and they just tell silly news stories. And it's a good way like to turn your brain off after a crazy day.
I like that. I like ways to turn my brain off a little bit.
Well, Sass, on
Yeah.
behalf of Gigi and I,
Yeah.
welcome to Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef.
I'm Gigi.
Thank you so much for coming on. We had a great time. We truly appreciate you.
This is wonderful. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Great podcast. Love
Thank
every
you.
single-
Take care. Thanks, Sass. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, gee, that was great.
Gee,
That was your
he's
boy.
amazing. Thank you. Listen, we have to get him back on. I feel like I
You
say
guys hear
that
it,
after
right? You
every
hear it?
interview, right? Like every interview is such a good one, but I think he has so much more to even talk about his story, even becoming an attorney. And I think it's inspiring because he didn't know that's where he was going to end up. I love his
Gee,
story.
I love this
Yeah.
because when I picked them, I knew you were gonna go. I knew it. It's certain ones that I know is gonna make you go, "Oh my goodness!" And
You
this
know
one,
me.
I told you before we went on camera. I said, "Gee, go do your thing."
I didn't know you coached him though.
Oh yeah.
Look
yeah,
at that. He's
yeah,
full of
yeah.
surprises, this guy.
That's my girl. Listen, G, we
Yeah.
did another show,
Yeah, another one.
and next week we have an amazing guest coming on again.
Yeah.
And listen,
Y'all got to
you
tune
know what
in.
we got to do though? This is very important.
hmm
Let's give props to who needs to be given props to.
Sure.
We've had a lot of success within a month.
Yes. Yeah.
So our team is amazing. Listen, our team in Connecticut, we thank you so much for being there for Gigi and I. Seriously.
That's right.
I mean, amazing. You guys are always there for us. Whatever we ask, whatever we need, you guys take care of. Gigi has family.
I do. I've got listen. I have family checking in from Elma and Queens, New York. I have family in Orlando, Florida checking out. Listen, my cousin Vito was one of the first subscribers. So Vito, if you're listening, get your friends to subscribe. But yeah, we got people
I love it. I
all
love
over that are checking in.
So it's 4 people that I definitely want to give a shout out to, play a huge, huge part in our numbers and in what we do. Casey Champion, Cincinnati, Ohio. What more can I say? Pook Diesel, Los Angeles, California. Thank you. Tyrese Jackson, Orlando, Florida. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You're always there for us. And my beautiful cousin, Marjani Mitchell, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So because of those four and your family,
Yeah.
our platform is growing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And so if you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe it. Thanks for everybody that's checking in, that watches the video. Make sure you subscribe. We want to continue to grow. As Teef says every week, let's grow this thing. So like and subscribe right now.
Give it to me.
Let's go.
Until next week, I'm Teef.
And I'm Gigi.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Welcome to Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef.
I'm Gigi.
And G, we have 7 episodes in already.
Can you believe that already?
Crazy, G.
Yeah. And it's been so much fun.
Give it to me.
Listen. I'm
Listen.
having a good time, Teef. Let the people know we have so many people
Our roster.
lined up for you.
Go ahead.
No, the roster is amazing. Teef is doing his job. I mean, he's reaching out to the West Coast. Listen, loving basketball. If you've seen it, you're gonna want to check in.
Oh my goodness. Everyone's seen Love and Basketball. And when she hits this airway, people are gonna be like, oh my goodness. I'm not gonna tell you who it is. You have to tune in. But we have some politicians, some celebrities, some community
attorneys.
activists, attorneys, musicians, coaches. I mean, we hit it across the board.
Yeah.
And please, be honest. It's not me. It's you as well. You've called your people in. I've called my people in, and they are coming every Wednesday night at 6.
Yeah.
Listen, this is Jazzy Conversations. I'm Teef.
I'm Gigi.
Well, give it to me then.
Come on now. Subscribe.
Have a good one. Good? We get those sweaters, G?
Yes.